Welcome to the In the Deep End podcast. I am Cosmic.
I'm Shanda.
And today we are going to do a review of the movie Sinners. Now, this is a movie everybody's been talking about, but I do want to give a spoiler warning. If you have not seen the movie yet, you want to go ahead and click off the video. Once you've seen the movie, come back and we'll go over everything together. So, first things first. And by the way, guys, since we've all seen it, there's no reason to recap scene by scene. We're just going to go over some things that we felt were important to look at, or that scenes that we found we liked. But first, for you, what rating would you give Sinners?
First, I just want to say bravo. Bravo to Ryan Coogler. Bravo. This was an excellent movie. It was storytelling at its finest. I think that it is a horror movie, but nothing is scarier than real life. And this is a depiction of real life told through horror. And excellent. After all, they say art imitates life. With that being said, I would give it about a 9.5 out of 10.
All right. And why a 9.5 out of 10?
Well, it's not getting a 10 only because it's a little bit of a slow burn.
Yeah, I agree.
In the beginning.
I agree.
It kind of gets to a point where you're like this, you're starting to go like this. And then as soon as you do that, it picks up.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'd give it a 9 for that reason. But it is pretty good. It is pretty good outside of it being slow. And I guess there's a lot of characters to introduce. But once everybody's been introduced and you're relatively familiar with everyone, the story kind of kicks off. And it's worth the wait, I think.
Well, true. And one thing I think that keeps it interesting, it keeps your anticipation high, is in the very beginning when Preacher Boy goes into his father's church after this, he just looks like he's been through it.
Right.
And been through the ringer. And his dad, is like, come in, son. And he grabs him. And there is this impression that you get that he is battling for his son's soul. And that keeps you intrigued. So even though it's a slow burn, that's going to come in somewhere.
And I think that it's also interesting because you don't know what happened. You don't know.
Right.
Like, okay, did you just murder a bunch of people? Like, what's going on? Like, because that's what I was thinking initially.
Right.
I was like, what the hell? I think in the beginning, one of the things that was most intriguing for me was the narration in the beginning. Guys, I seen it once and there's so much that goes on in the movie. I don't remember exactly what they were talking about, but basically in different cultures how there's keepers of fire, and I think that it was in relation to music and how certain people have the ability to thin the veil, if you will, through song. And so I found that to be super intriguing and a really interesting thought. So what scenes or points did you feel were most impactful for you in the beginning?
Well, like Cosmic said, there's just so many storylines. So for the sake of not having a 3-hour video, I'm just going to kind of point out the interesting points or things that caught my attention. When the twins, Smoke and Stack, come back from Chicago, they come back with this entrepreneurial spirit, and it's kind of reminiscent of the Kennedys in a way, because you make your money illegally, and you come back or begin to make it legal. And that's basically what happened. They were working for Al Capone in Chicago, as well as doing some other stuff, and came back to, make honest businessmen of themselves. So I really like the entrepreneurial factor in the beginning.
And I thought it was interesting once they were introduced and once they came on the scene, because all the black people you see up until that point are kind of ragged, living this kind of
Plantation life.
post slavery lifestyle, the Jim Crow lifestyle,
Right.
and so very poor community. And then you see these two guys jump out decked in suits and stuff. They're driving their car, so it's like, I don't know, I thought that was interesting. And then of course they move on to go and pick up their cousin, which is Samuel. Samuel, preacher boy, whichever you do feel comfortable calling him. And it's always your cousins that get you involved in the most fucked up shit, and they always get you into trouble.
Always get a whooping.
It's always the cousins.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but it's always the cousins. So they pick him up, and against his father's wishes, he's like, I'm about to go have fun on the night of the town instead of, coming to church and reading the word and all that we do on an everyday basis. So I don't know. I thought that whole scene was very funny, realistic. Well, realistic in the way you have these rough or no good cousins, but and you're going out with them and all he knew was he was going out with his cousins. I don't think he knew what exactly they'd be getting into. I don't recall. But are there any earlier scenes that you can also remember?
Well,
you?
Well, including the preacher boy scene when the father comes out on the steps of the church, and he's calling his name, and he's trying to, son, don't go, basically. And you can see kind of like the tug of war, and you can't help it. The soul wants what the soul wants. So he went with his love of music and decided to go.
I thought that it was a very powerful statement. I don't know how I feel about the statement, but I know that it did move me in some form of way when he says, you dance with the devil long enough, eventually he'll follow you home. So, depending on everybody's own personal experiences, that's a very interesting statement. It's a very interesting statement.
I agree with that, because it's a lesson that I think a lot of our parents tried to teach us. But something like, of course it's not as dark as that, but I remember my mom, and a lot of you probably heard the same thing, that you lay down with dogs long enough, you'll get up with fleas. So it's kind of like the same thought process.
Right.
Be very careful of the steps that you take in life.
Right.
And that's what the dad was trying to tell Samuel, but that pull for that music was too hard for him. So which I get, and I agree. The soul wants what the soul wants.
Right.
So after they get picked up, they're riding to wherever their other truck is that's full of liquor for the whole shindig that's planned for the night. And the two brothers go their separate way to handle, business.
Wasn't the snake a sign or forewarning of trouble coming?
That was very interesting. You know what? It's so funny because I didn't think about that initially.
I didn't either until you just said it.
But yes, that was a warning. Beware. It
right.
was beware. And too bad we don't understand the signs when they're given to us.
Nope.
We never do until after the fact.
Right. It's an afterthought.
Yeah. So if we are open and watching, I think we would be steered away from many bad things that happen in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the earlier scenes that was intriguing for me and caught my attention is when Smoke went to the general store that the Asians owned, and turns out they were friends. So I was wondering, were they in the war together? Is that how they knew each other? Or did they grow up in the same
In the
vicinity?
same vicinity, right?
Maybe they did, but they were really good friends. As soon as they walked in, you could see the camaraderie between them has been cultivated over quite some time. What it did for me is, as soon as I saw this scene, I thought, right now there is such a racial divide in America. The Mexicans against the blacks against the Mexicans, the Asians against the blacks. I mean, you name it. We're all at each other's throats. And this was indicative of what our relationships should be. We all have a role. We all play a role in this society. And we're all up against the same enemy. So why do we not work together to make it happen?
Yeah, when it comes to the small town or to the general store, and when Smoke goes into town, one of the scenes that I really loved about this portion of the movie is when he is looking for someone to watch his truck, and he picks the girl, and he's basically saying, teaches her negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so, that was just, it was a wholesome scene. I think that that's lost on society today, whether kids aren't really attuned to listen, and adults aren't really, I guess they're dissuaded from teaching for that reason, but they're not really too keen to teach either. So I love that. And then I love how you see him putting it into his own practice when he is negotiating with the Asian guy's wife about making signs and doing some other things that they needed for their juke jam, whatever it's called. Juke joint. That's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that whole thing. I was shocked to see Asians in this kind of a movie. Anytime we see a movie like this, it's usually black and white. Those are the only individuals you ever see in the movie. I did not realize that Asians were in America at this point. I damn sure don't believe they were running general stores, but it's fiction at the end of the day with undertones of reality to it.
Is it fiction? Because again, Asians were here on working on the railroads in the early 1900s.
Or so it was fiction, and I haven't seen a vampire yet. So as far as I'm concerned, the movie is fiction, but it has a lot of reality undertones to it that makes the movie exceptional.
Well, as far as the negotiating scene goes, I thought that was a very valuable scene because I think it's a lesson that not enough of us realize and know.
True.
That don't just take what you're offered. Negotiate your value. So, and it's okay to say no if you don't think you're getting paid your worth. So I think this was a very valuable scene for all who watched.
Yeah, I agree with that. When it comes to Smoke entering the general store, I couldn't figure out if the daughter had like a racial problem or if she sensed a reckoning coming, if you will. And I say that because she kind of has a shitty attitude towards Smoke. Even after she sees how Smoke interacts with her parents, she still just has this kind of vibe to her that's just very interesting. But the reason why I say did she sense a reckoning, because she does look strangely out the window as her parents are headed off to head to this juke joint to help out Stack and Smoke. So, I don't know. I thought that was interesting and it was worth mentioning to me. So, let me know what you guys think about that. Did she have a problem, or maybe was she sensing some not so good vibes just coming from the whole situation? Another part of this scene I really liked is when Smoke goes out and those two thieves are out there trying to loot his truck, and he shoots them. Well, shoots one. They realize who he is, and then he decides, I can't let this other guy get away unharmed because that affects my reputation, and shoots him in the knee. So I thought that was hilarious. That was a good little laugh to I wouldn't say break up anything that was going on, but I enjoyed the laugh.
And keep your hands to yourself.
Right. Stay out of people's stuff. Right.
Right. Right.
After that, I think the next scene for me was when Smoke visits Annie's house, which, at the time we don't know. Of course, I knew that it was a grave, assumed it was his daughter. I wasn't sure of Annie at the time when she's standing in the doorway. I'm like, okay, is this respected woman in the neighborhood? Is it a mom? Is it aunt? Is it girl? I didn't really expect girlfriend or wife. Turns out Annie's her wife. I love Annie. I love the spiritual representation that takes place. Although I don't know too much of anything about hoodoo particularly, I realize a lot of spiritual practices, although they may not be parallel to each other, they do have a form of, is congruency a word? They are congruent in many senses of beliefs on just the unseen and unexplained. So I really enjoyed this scene for those reasons. And so yeah, I love the spiritual representation, and I like the conversation that they're having. Annie's all into this hoodoo stuff, and Smoke's like, I don't know why you believe in this shit. I've seen a lot of bad things in my life. I've had a lot of experiences. I've been to a lot of different places. I've never seen a ghost, monster, none of that. And and he says basically, if this stuff is real, why, and if it does provide protection and things, why is our child dead? And she doesn't have an answer for it. And but she tells him, for whatever reason, it works for you. And I think that that's so important to realize. Some people are I don't want to say called to certain things, but they're definitely protected by other things. What may protect someone else may curse another, or just simply bypass another for whatever reason, and we don't know. We can't debunk basically something that we can't prove either way. So, I love the whole scene when it comes to this.
You know what? This scene is reminiscent of our community as a whole. We all know in Annie, in our community, our black women are healers, protectors, the guiders, and I do think that, of course, minus the hoodoo, or including it, whatever you're into, she was all about protecting this person that she loved. And however that needed to be done, she did it. And in just this case, it was the mojo.
Right.
The mojo sack.
Right.
Which seems to have protected him. Now, he said, I've been all over this world. I've seen a lot of monsters. He has seen or has not seen? Has not seen monsters. But what we don't know, what he maybe didn't know, is that monsters and spiritual affliction are unseen.
They're unseen, and in his case, they reveal themselves. But I think another thing that I love about this, and I think that's something that we don't think of often, is she basically tells him, well, you don't think while you were gone and doing whatever it was you were doing that I wasn't praying for you every day, that I wasn't working for you every day and doing her practices, that, and I think that a lot of the time, you never know who who's looking out for
who's
you.
praying for you, who's if you're into that kind of stuff, who's doing root work or anything you just don't know.
You don't know.
How you guys, when you're talking to some of your family members or something, they'll say, boy, he's been through a lot, but he has a praying mother,
Right.
or he has a praying grandmother,
Yeah.
or whatever the case. Because we go out into this world, God only knows, what we're going to encounter, and we hope that someone is praying on our behalf or doing something to try to keep us safe and protect us.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of scene that kind of related to what I know as a black person in this world, is that we have all of these people around us who are praying for us, wishing us well, and sending us out with this protection that is unseen. For evil that is unseen.
And I think that is it's really powerful. Yeah, I have a lot of appreciation for that scene.
Absolutely. And one thing that I liked about it is she wasn't like, and where have you been all these years?
And who you
right,
been with?
right. It's just a love.
You been where?
Yeah.
With who?
Yeah. So it is just a love and a respect from a woman to a man, regardless of all of this other stuff. And that I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point. Another scene that I thought was very impactful was the where Stack and Samuel go to the train station to find new talent. This was interesting for many reasons to me, and I was wondering, I kind of have an idea, but I was like, well, why was Slim mad at Samuel for showing him what he's got, with the guitar and his voice? I thought that was a little, I don't know, I thought that was a little weird or crazy. It's like, ultimately, if somebody stops by, they're gonna put money into your hat anyway, so he's not trying to take your little business you got going on for the day.
Well, you know how that is, though. It's like, this is my corner, no matter what. Because if your stuff is better than my stuff, I'm scared you're gonna take my business. So that's just how people are in general.
Boo, that was weak. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that. But boy, look, all that logic he had talking about, and that can sustain me for 10 years. That might be all I have left. What is that?
So Slim,
Irish beer.
Yeah.
All logic was gone.
So as you guys know, Slim is the community music man in the town drunk. But everybody loves those, right? Woodrows. Everybody loves those.
Another scene I'd like to go over was the car ride with Slim, Samuel, and Stack. And look, shame on Slim. He got some of those poor men shot. They're over there doing their little chain gang work. And he's all, hold your head up. Next thing you know, pop.
It's like,
and it's like, damn.
I didn't even understand. I guess assholes and elbows, that's all they want to see.
That's what they say. How do you feel about the story that Slim told on the car ride?
Well, what I think about that is, haven't we heard so many stories like this before?
Right.
Black man, especially in the Jim Crow era, black man, a little bit of money in his pocket. He encounters some whites, and one thing leads to another, and next thing you know, he's strange fruit.
And that's happened even post Jim Crow era. It's just like, we were watching a YouTube channel not too long ago, and the guy was basically talking about how he just got money for a bike, or he made money with his bike. Either way, he has about $34 on him, and he runs into a police officer, and basically the police officer says, basically your bail's $34, or you could spend the night in jail. And I believe that was like 70s, I believe 70s, if not 80s. So it's in things you hear from past experiences like Jim Crow,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's things you hear that are more present to those who are still living and walking the earth today. So it's a sad story that many of us know about one way or another, and it's a shame. I think that one of the most saddest things in this scene, one of them, is Samuel says, "Well, what did you do with all your money?" And he points to his flask and he says, "I drank it." And it's like, damn, man. It's like you could have done a little something decent with your life, but we all have our vices. And I'm no one to judge with mine. So, although, it was just very disappointing and upsetting. And I think another thing that was just so, you could tell by telling his story, he was so hurt about just the life that he, period of life that he lived at that time, or how it could have been his life in general. Um, and it gets to a point where it looks like he's just like down in the dumps, maybe on the verge of tears, and he breaks out humming. And
Breaks out in
next thing
song.
you know, they're creating some song, and the spirit lifts again. And I don't know. I just thought that that's just so. It's so. It's a sad life. That's a sad life for a soul.
Well, like I said earlier, we all know a Delta Slim. One that is down on his luck at some point in his life, has ups and downs, and during those ups may come some sort of financial gain. But because the experiences of life have done such a number on you, all you know to do is to do things such as alcoholism, drugs, whatever the case, because it takes the pain away. When you have lived a very a life full of ups and downs, sometimes you just want to get away. And I think people get lost in that.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come across money, off to the dope man's house, off to the liquor store, whatever they need to do to keep themselves where they believe is a comfortable place. So again, this movie has so many reality reflections
Right.
that anybody can for
Relate to by
that
in some way, shape, or form.
exactly. So that's what I think of Delta Slim. It's like, everybody has a community wino, and nobody knows their story.
Right.
And I'm sure if you took some time to talk to that person, you would understand. But usually we look down on them.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Which is not the very Christian thing to do for those of you out there.
Right.
But before before the night kicks off, do you have any other scenes that you felt were impactful or important, or that you'd like to speak on?
Well, the only thing that I think I'd like to speak on is when Mary first enters the plot
At the train
at
station.
the train station. And I I think this is where a couple of switches flip, because during that time in 1932, a person such as herself brings nothing but trouble. And some people cannot go without getting in trouble. It's like, what is that? Trouble's coming your way, turn and run the other way. But that's not what happens, as we all know, with what's going on right now with Shannon.
Shame on you, Shannon Sharp,
Okay.
which we will be talking about soon.
Yeah, Mary all day. Okay, so that's when I'm just kind of like, okay, let's see where this is gonna go. So that's the only thing that I think we did not cover in the very beginning.
How did you feel about when Remick is first introduced to the scene, when he is falls out of the sky, or so it appears, and appears on the white people's doorstep?
Well, I think, you know what, you guys, the one thing I think that I like most about this movie is that it encompasses just about everybody.
Hmm.
Um, you know, such as our society, right? Everybody was accounted for the most part. There were one or two missing, but for the most part, everybody was accounted for. And when Remick first shows up, he kind of just drops out of the sky. But I think more importantly is the Choctaw Native Americans that are hunting him, if you will. And when he gets to the home, he convinces them to let him in. Well, when the Choctaw Indians come to the door, they're saying he's not who you think he is, and she is not receptive and ends up closing the door, or they say it's getting ready to get dark, let's go. So they leave. She closes the door. Then finds out it's a FAFO moment for her.
Yeah, I think that this scene is very interesting. When it comes to Remick and whatever he represents outside of a vampire, he uses the tools that are at his disposal. In the first appearance, it's hatred. In the second one, it's camaraderie. Technically, when his impactful, I guess,
Excellent point.
his impactful ones, right, is camaraderie, and then there's fear. And I'll go over those last two as we go on with the review and just the review. I guess we're not really recapping, but yeah, he uses hatred in order to, oh, these fucking Indians, they're over here. They took my wife.
They're trying to
You can't
kill me.
imagine what they did to her. They robbed me. And I don't know who's robbing anybody and leaving you with a couple pieces of gold.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, like get out of here. And it's indicative of the people who immerse themselves in hatred and how lackful of intelligence they are, and not considering that fact. All they know is, oh, you hate Indian, I hate Indians too. Come on inside, come on in the room. Right. Like, so it is just, and as you said, they have a fuck around and find out moment, and you see so much could have been avoided by having a conversation and not being so damn hateful.
Doesn't that remind you guys of what's happening right now? The same thing applied. You rally and unite around hatred. Look. Doesn't that remind you of somebody?
If you know, you know. If you get it, you get it. Opening for me, the next part is opening night. They got the festivities going. Everybody's there, and this is the moment where you get to see Slim. Well, it's kind of it's a co-ed moment, because the scene kicks off with Samuel being brought on stage to perform for everyone that's there. And during his performance, before I think one of the most impactful scenes in the movie, you see Slim telling him basically the secret to the blues. And in a way, he's telling him the same thing that the narrator is telling us in the beginning in his own way, about how there's this special quote-unquote magic to this genre of music that he's interested in and is about to make his debut. And I love this whole scene. I love how the director takes the moment to show how music transcends time, and there's spirits of the past and spirits of the future in communion with the people in the juke joint at the time, as Samuel is performing his own song. And it's just, if you've ever had those experiences where you're at a party, or you're, and I don't mean just like, I mean like a party such as this, where you're so free in the moment that and it just feels like, what's happening is a very special moment. You might not be able to put your finger on it and why it's so special, but you walk away from it saying, "Oh my God, that was such a fun night. That was a great time." But if you're a person like me and you're a big feeler, when you're in it, it feels different. It's a certain kind of high, if you will. And I love how they captured that. I loved how they captured all the different cultures that were in attendance. And then later you see a stark difference when another culture is involved or steps onto the scene as far as the juke joint goes. Do you have anything to say to that scene?
I do. One thing that I love about my folks, my people, is that we do believe in good times and good music, and we sure believe in a catfish fish fry. It's just one of those staples. It just makes you feel good, while you're in it or watching it on film. It's just I love my folks.
I hate seafood.
when Preacher Boy makes his musical debut, he's very, very talented, but music is a combination. I think it brings out a combination of things in all of us. This particular scene is like a culmination of our ancestry, our cultures, not ours but others as well.
Yes.
Talents and spirituality, showing that we're all spiritually connected,
right,
by music,
right.
And through the vibration of music comes both light and dark,
right.
But it's knowing which is which.
Yes, and while this is all going on, of course they're inside. Remick is outside with his new little crew that fucked around and found out, and they're all in awe. But the way that Remick captured this moment, it was everything. It was almost like he saw the most beautiful thing he's ever seen in the world. And I think that it was so crazy because as he's witnessing this by sound, he's also, through his vision and through, I guess, his imagination, is witnessing the future demise that is to come, because they're all dancing, but the establishment's burned down and there's fire everywhere, right? So in one respect, he's captivated emotionally, and in another, he's I don't know, I don't want to say planning destruction, but I don't know. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Somewhat.
I think that it was an amazing scene.
It really was, and I think with Remick and those guys out there, and they wanted so badly to be a part, only to bring destruction. That was
well. They had every intention of bringing destruction.
Well, no, I know, but when they were at the door,
true,
they came under the guise of
camaraderie,
wanting to commingle, wanting to say, hey, we like music too. You want us to play you a little bit? And they were like, twing, ting, twang, ting. It was like ridiculous. But, it is trying to relate and trying to get through the door through relation when there's really no relation.
And it's just bad intentions behind it.
It's bad and malicious intention. And we go through that every day.
Right.
Hey, how are you doing today, girl? How was your weekend?
Right.
Oh, we had so and so. It wasn't too great. You know, my brother got into a little trouble. And then next thing you know, your boss is saying, hey, I'm really sorry to hear about your brother.
Right.
Because there's malicious intent.
How's your relationship going?
No matter how they come, there's malicious intent behind it. This is the way that I looked at it.
Right.
Because there were so many cues.
And this is what I mean when I say that it had a lot of reality undertones, because that can apply to anybody in any situation. But with the movie particularly having the racial undertones that it has, I think a lot of us, regardless of your race, if you're a minority, you can kind of relate to having experiences like what we see here in this movie. So it's a lot going on, but
it's a lot.
This is what all makes it a great movie. And while Remick and his little gang are at the door, guess whose ass is right behind the twins after we told you don't need to be here anyway, because you can bring a whole lot of trouble. And she runs her ass up to the front door, so jeopardizing the whole everybody there plus the whole establishment. It's like, see why you're hard-headed. Go sit down somewhere. All in the video. Go and sit down somewhere.
All in the video. You know, this irked my last nerve. This scene did. Cause hell, there were Karens in 1932 too, I guess. And it's like always wanting to be in everything, always wanting to have something to say. I just did not like that at all, but it's indicative of current behavior.
And, you know, I think, it's very funny how Remick is saying, well, how did she get in? You know, after he's realizing they're not going to let him in. And, you know, of course, what's her name? Annie says, you know, she's family. That's why she's here. And I know that everybody has their own feelings about that. But, I don't know. To be honest, Mary was the whole downfall to their situation, ultimately. And I hate to say it because it's not like she was malicious, you know, but she was definitely the doorway to a disastrous event.
Well, you know the old saying, but for you. So yes, but for Mary, that means if it weren't for you, this wouldn't have happened.
Oh, I see.
So, for Mary,
right,
these things never would have occurred.
Right.
Because
they would have stood strong on
not letting them in.
Right.
Okay, not welcoming them in.
But arguably, some could argue that's not the case, because what if Cornbread was always going to go to the bathroom and, you know, they caught Cornbread out there and, you know, on the slide before things started jumping off, he goes, hey man, let me in, or I can come in here, or, you know, he did something, you said something, could have been, you know.
Well, it's the butterfly effect, right? There are a lot of endings depending on the decisions made.
Exactly.
So, with that being said, look at, you guys, what's happening right now to
Shannon. Right, which is why I think it's a great depiction how the director chose to go about it, because it's another undertone.
Now, this is before the Shannon Sharp incident even happened, right? I mean, Jonathan Majors.
True.
And all of the other people that we know and love that have gone through things such as this with people such as Mary and Gabby and all these other folks. It's always the same story. It's always the same outcome. And but for you, this wouldn't be happening.
Right.
Okay. Not to say that, nobody else doesn't have anything, any guilt in this scenario. However, they all kind of have the same hue, don't they? So that's that whole scene just irked the hell out of me.
Yeah, I agree in many ways. One thing I'd like to mention, although I said earlier, it's always the cousins that get you in trouble. You got to give a round of applause to Smoke for trying to guide Samuel. Yeah.
Right.
To try to guide Samuel down a better path. He sees that Samuel's getting a little bit too blinded by the lights of what's going on, and he tries to give him the real and honest truth of what everything that they're involved in is, and everything that the blues represents. And I don't know one happy musician, so he wants better for him, and he tries to tell him to do the right thing. But it's almost like once you get your first little taste of whatever your temptation is, that's a wrap after that, because you've had it. You like it. It's good. So that's an interesting. When you talk about the struggle and fight over his soul, it's a very interesting dynamic to it. I thought.
Well, I agree with you. And it's like, don't be like me, be better.
Exactly.
And that's what he was trying to teach him. But again, the soul wants what the soul wants. So you become deaf to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we can all kind of empathize with that, because we've all wanted something that wasn't necessarily good for us.
Exactly.
Such as was okay. But it just is what it is, and you do the best you can and try to make yourself happy and safe all at the same time.
And I before I move on, I would like to acknowledge that, everybody, all the men are jaded by Mary. How she's so beautiful, she was so this, she was so that. And in my eyes, it's like Mary was cute, but she wasn't the baddest in the movie. Not looking off.
Yeah.
The baddest in the room was what's her name? Perline.
She was
Perline, Samuel's little girl.
Yeah, she's
girlfriend /
all right,
out here committing adultery.
Right.
So, but she was the most beautiful woman, and I hate that. I thought that. Well, I'm not gonna say that, but what I am gonna say is, dark skinned girls deserve to be appreciated for their beauty too, and this is a beautiful dark skinned girl. And I hate that she's not getting,
she's being overlooked.
She's being overlooked. Mm-hmm. She's being overlooked, and she's beautiful. So I did want to throw that in there before I moved on.
But it's indicative of our real lives.
Well, it is real life.
Yeah, overlooked.
Because she was valued in the movie, but when it comes to real life,
totally overlooked. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's unfortunate.
But I did want to give you your flowers. Jamie Lawson, that's the actress who played her.
Jamie Lawson, you're a very attractive lady.
Very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say beautiful often. Mm-hmm. I might say you're cute or you're pretty. Mm-hmm. But I think beautiful is just in its own league. And she's truly beautiful.
Agreed.
To say.
During, everything's going well, people are drinking, laughing, eating, dancing, having a great time. One of the twins notices that they are taking wooden nickels and bills that don't look like normal United States government bills.
Right.
Almost as if it's Confederate money or something like that, because that's what they're getting paid with.
Right.
And one twin is like, well, they've worked all their days, weeks, months, whatever it is, for this money, and they're spending it here with us. We can at least have some empathy for our own people and recognize and realize the position they're in. Of course, the other twins, like, this is a business. But the other twin, it's like, you know what? And it kind of reminds me of the situation that we're in now as a people. We may have to get to a point where we have to reenact the barter system, because not all of us are going to have, and it's going to become the have and the have nots. So that's a lesson, I think, for us all, to be empathetic of others and to try to work with them where they are.
As you guys follow this channel, you'll realize that I'm a very empathetic person. However, when it comes to real life, business is business. At the end of the day, can you barter with people who, I guess, are in your same tax bracket or whatever? Sure, do whatever you want to do. But when it comes to trying to start a business, you can't really build anything off of wooden chips and Confederate money. So I'm in total agreement with the other twin, because this is a business at the end of the day. You can have one of these cheap beers that you find around here in Mississippi all the time. Yeah, you gave me a little 2 chips or whatever, I'll give you one of those. And your limit is 2, unless you can come up with some real change. So then that way, you can still have a good time, still have a little bit to drink. But I don't know. I think that you can't run business that way. But that's just, yeah. I don't know. That like shakes my soul. It's like I didn't care for that just as much as he did, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. That bothers me. Next we have Mary. And when Mary goes out to speak to Remick, the only thing that I feel I have to say is, it's like, bitch, what made you think that after he showed you what he was, that you were getting ready to walk up into the juke jam like nothing happened and you can tell everybody what was going on? For her to turn her back on the enemy, that's like 101 rule. You never do that. They teach you that in 101. So I hated it. It made her look stupid. Now I'm not saying she should have let a bunch of shots off, because that wasn't gonna do much for her anyway. But if she walked backwards, and got a shot off her too, it does slow him down a little bit. So you gotta constantly kind of like get your back pedal on. I play football, so I'm cold with the back pedal. So I don't know. The fact that she ran away thinking that she was gonna get away is crazy. You saw this dude's eyes change, teeth are all sharp, thick ass drool coming down the side of his chin. It's like, well, you didn't realize you weren't dealing with a normal individual at that point, but okay. What do you have? Do you have anything when it comes to that scene?
Well, the only thing is that they give Remick gives Mary 2 gold coins, and it's nothing like she's ever seen before. She didn't realize what it was, but she was very intrigued by it. And of course, it's kind of like, give them something shiny as a distraction or a way to open the door. And that's exactly, what ended up happening, even though it was by way of infection.
And I think one other thing that was so interesting about that scene that I didn't know how to feel about it or understand its significance was when Remick says, oh, that's no good for you though. You're going through a lot of pain and a lot of grief. And I think one thing I missed was empathy, because that's the grounds in which he tries to capture Mary. So maybe that was the whole point and had nothing to do with the coins at all. Um, so yeah, very very interesting. And of course, we know Mary. Of course, Mary, come inside. What do you mean? Can you come in? And this is where things start to ensue. Next thing you know, and first of all, Slim is so stupid. Okay, this was another highlight funny moment for me when Samuel goes looking for Stack. And Slim's like, yeah, he's over there. He's over there in the room. Yeah, you can go back there. Go ahead. And of course, he walks in on what he walks in on. And then what did Slim say? Oh yeah, I forgot they're doing something in there. I was rolling. The whole theater was rolling. It was hilarious. Top tier comedic moment. And then next thing you know, Mary's gnawing on Stack's neck. And this at this point,
I hated to see Stack die.
did you? Was that your favorite twin?
Yes.
Why? Explain that.
Well, there's. I mean, you can never get enough of Michael B. Jordan, and I feel like I know him. I feel like
Stack more than Smoke.
yeah. I feel like I've known. So
He died. He died first.
Michael B. Jordan did an excellent job.
I do too. I think so
really,
too.
really hope he's recognized at the awards next year.
I think the thing about this this scene, the main thing, there's a couple things, but the main thing for me is Smoke. It's time to throw logic out the window at a certain point. Okay, you have shot this bitch 25 times all over her body, and she gets up and runs a
Like
3-4
Flojo, right.
a 3-4-40 out the front door and says, "We're gonna kill you all." And at this point, you should realize, you know what? This is not a normal situation. And Annie, what should we do about this? I know you said he was all in shock about his brother and this and that. And I know they were twins, so maybe it's a little bit different. But and I know my brother's looking down on me right now, shaking my head, but I wouldn't be that damn in shock. You're gone. And whatever's just happened, I'm trying to make sure I don't end up like that. So we need to figure out a plan, because this is he's sitting there, oh my god. Look, you drag him outside the establishment, like Annie said, and then go ahead and go back into the room, put your face in your hands, cry about it, and spaz out, breaks, whatever you gotta do. I think that there was a lot of wasted time and inevitably put them in jeopardy because of your shock.
That's a whole lot of reasoning to do
I know what I know to be true in just my
a situation.
experience.
First of all, you're trying to figure out what the hell you just saw. First, and then I got, like Annie said, that's a haint. They thought it was an evil demon or evil spirit at first, not even realize what it was. So if it's just, say it was a haint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then your brother's not going to turn. He's just dead. So it wasn't until Annie said, these are vampires. So we have to take him outside before he comes back.
She suggested that beforehand. She suggested taking him out the house as soon as this girl gets out here and runs off. And for me, it's just, look, I know in real life experience, I'm a person, I process emotions way, way later down the road. It might be it might be a year, might be a couple months, and maybe years before I really sit down and process the situation that took place. As the situation's going on, I was like, there's something in me that's like, okay, lock in until the situation's over and you have time to process. That's just me.
And that is just you.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I don't know. But yeah, so basically after all of this happens, I know a lot of men care about their wife and I guess want to do what they think that they should do or anything. All I know is you couldn't have done shit to get me to go outside and get no car. I she's outside. Why would I go outside? I wouldn't do it. Why did the Asian man go out there to that car? I'll never understand it, never know. But he's braver than me. I wouldn't have done it after what I just saw. And if you didn't see what happened, because I know he wasn't in the room, you saw that bitch run out that door and you saw how fast she was moving. Mary doesn't move like that. So
Well, let's kind of put that into perspective when you talk about like with real life. Okay? Think about where we are right now as a nation. Half of the nation is looking like, you didn't see that? You didn't hear that? You don't, when it should be obvious and evident.
that's true.
But it isn't to certain people for whatever reason. So that's just what happens in society or among human beings as a whole. You see something and you think it means X. I see something, I think it means Y, and we both think that we're seeing the right things. So the Asian guy saw her running out like that. It may not have even processed in that moment what he was seeing. He was just maybe thinking about, let's get the hell out of here. But that just goes to show you that maybe you need to sit for 30 seconds
Exactly.
and
Right.
analyze the situation. Don't make any decisions until you've done so.
Right. And I'm in complete agreement with that. Crazy. It couldn't have been me. And here we see Remic's second appearance, and this is where Fear is implicated in his next and final attempt to try to get access into the establishment. And this scene tripped me up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. He made it clear that he wanted Samuel. He claims everybody else would have gotten to live. And, I'm very much a Samuel myself. Samuel started walking outside. At that point, even if I was in Samuel's position and I had this inner knowing and feeling that I brought Remick into this thing, I probably would have, done the same thing. But of course, they held him back. But when it comes to him talking about their reality as black people, where they are, and how not only that, he's talking about, just on simple terms, them building this business. It was a great idea, but it was built on a lie, because guess what? The guy you bought it from, he's Grandmaster Ku Klux Klan. He's coming here tomorrow to kill all of you and take his little establishment back and whatever you collected anyway. So you might as well, this is when it kind of gets a little shifty. But I know for me, I was sitting there thinking like, he's not lying, and I can't say what I would have done personally. I can't really say, that's a hard one for me.
Well, that was a very interesting scene. And I think he was talking to us.
Absolutely.
He was talking to us. You've been sold a lie. You've been sold a dream. It has not yet materialized and will never. So it's easier to come over to the dark side. At least you're welcome.
And I don't know. And wasn't it interesting? Don't you feel like with the more bodies and souls, I guess, that they collected as a unit, because as we find, they become a unit at that point once they've turned, the music changed. It isn't banjo-y. It kind of, honestly, to me, it kind of gave a Vikings kind of flair to it. That's how I kind of experienced that scene a bit. I think I'd love it if a lot of people could get Oscars for this movie, but I think that the movie overall should get an Oscar just for based on storyline, performance. Fantastic job to everybody who participated. I do want to throw that out there because there's just so many scenes that were just so captivating and so just thought provoking.
Completely agree. And just kind of throw this little tidbit out there. We went to the 1:30 showing. It was packed, you guys. It was packed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an excellent movie. It really is.
And I'm not a person who goes to the movies often. Since we've moved here, I have not been to the movies. And from being from California and to coming here, it's a very different experience. You have to, I don't know if it's just this theater or what, but you buy your tickets at the concession stand, and then you also don't just buy the tickets, but you pick your seats. I was pissed because I kind of feel like it should be what it's always been: first come, first serve when it comes to seats. So I wasn't really happy with our seating arrangements that we ended up with, but yeah, it was an experience.
You can tell, though, we haven't been to the movies in quite some time.
Right.
Everything since COVID, since all the COVID stuff started happening, everything just kind of halted.
I felt like an old man. I'm over there tapping on the screen. It's not even touch screen. it was terrible.
She was like, "Oh, it's not touch screen."
Right. It was bad. I was up there looking ridiculous. And let me. And for the next scene, you guys tell me, do you think the Asian woman was wrong for what she did? Because I don't think so. At this point, you all share a collective consciousness. You all apparently are superhuman in your own right. How do I not know one of you are on the way to wherever my daughter is now? And then you guys, they're just in there sitting around. They've put all these weapons together. It's like, okay, use them. You don't want to go outside. You don't want to let her go outside. Come in. Come inside. I have something for you. Come in. I would have let them in. I would have done the exact same thing that she did. I know a lot of people, black people particularly, are saying, oh, Asians are a part of the downfall of the black community. Look at what she did, and she let everybody inside.
That's what they're saying?
Yeah, I saw one of these people on TikTok say that, and I thought that was crazy as hell. I thought they were bullshitting, just sitting around. What are you building shit for and sculpting weapons if you're not going to use them? It's time to get it popping. Let's go. I didn't like it. So what do you think about what she did?
Well,
and if you don't want them to come in, let me get outside.
Well, that was an option
because they were holding her back.
Yeah, that was an option, but again, it has so many topics that are relating to where we find ourselves today. And you think about what's happening with our governmental situation. And some people are saying, let's go out and do what we need to do in these streets and either burn it all the way down to the ground or it's going to fix it. A lot of us feel that way. Half of us feel, well, let's just wait and see. Let's prepare and then just wait and see. Mm-hmm. That's why that movie is a microcosm of our society.
Of past, present, at least past and present.
At least past and present.
And it's such a great movie.
It was excellent. Such a great storyteller.
Yes.
Great storyteller.
Yes.
Loved it.
And it was creative. Mm-hmm. That's what I appreciated the most. So many movies, they've gotten a little better with some of the stuff that they've put out. I've seen about 3, 4 good movies, but usually it's like every movie was good and every movie had its own unique edge to it, and you don't have a lot of that anymore. more. Samuel, you deserved every bit of that pistol whipping that you got. Shut your ass up. We need to know if this bitch is a vampire or not. You're busy over there trying to cater to her little feelings. You better put that damn garlic in your mouth and chew. It's like you're busy talking about, no, bro, stop.
Right, and those of you who have seen it, you know exactly the scene we're talking about.
He should have got popped twice.
She was ridiculous anyway for not even wanting to eat the garlic. It's like, okay, either that or be murdered, one or the other.
Exactly. It's all like, it's like, don't you see the situation you're in?
Yeah, just chew it. You don't mean just swallow it. You don't gotta chew it up. Just swallow it.
Right. The brawl ensued, of course, after the Asian girl invited him in. I loved the whole battle scene, packed with action. Loved the gore. Loved everything about that. Do you have anything as it's in reference to the battle?
No, it was great cinematography, but outside of that, no, I don't have anything to say about that.
The next, I think, really crucial scene I want to touch on is the reciting of prayer. When Samuel and Remick are out in the water, and Samuel's kind of like, he's on his last straw, and Samuel goes and starts, shit, I don't know the prayer by heart myself. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And Remick starts to, recite it along with him. And then it kind of gets all of their attention and they start reciting it along with them. And, one thing that's really kind of irked me after seeing this movie and looking at reviews are the so-called Christians who know every fucking thing that are coming and saying how, this is just such a disgrace and they're desecrating the word. It's almost like, are you fucking stupid? Yes. It's almost like demons and devils know the word better than you. They are of the spiritual, all of that went on. Lucifer was an angel at one point and one of the favorites.
The angel of music.
And the angel of music, exactly. It's almost kind of like, why wouldn't you think that the devil wouldn't know anything about the word or scripture and whatever? And he is, in a sense, mocking him. But still, we know if you've seen any horror movie, that's what they do. No matter what, if it's The Exorcist and, he's powered up and they're throwing that holy water and reciting verses and shit, they start...
Right, exactly.
It cracks them up,
right.
So I'm just, I don't know. You must be sheltered or something. Sheltered, slow, special. I'm not sure.
They say the devil's sitting on the front pew in a white hat.
Exactly. Okay. And he's hanging out with your sons. While
they're hanging out with me, he's hanging out with the mothers of the church.
Mothers of the church and the sons that are on the, what are they, choir boys? Yeah, so for all you so-called offended churchgoers, and I'd like to also insert that it's you churchy Bible thumpers who killed Jesus the first time around. So you might want to rethink your position on some things. But anyway, I love that scene. I think that it was very impactful. And of course, Remick says, I this is bullshit, but, it still brings me comfort.
I liked the scene too because it was a depiction of light and dark. And
yes.
And it was the battle of souls, if you will. It was one of those things that good wins over evil. And we hope that things do turn out that way for the most part, but not always. But Samuel's father, like again, that praying mom or that praying granny, that praying father, believing father, he had instilled the necessary things within him that contained the light that it took to fight against the dark.
And you know, one of these dumb bitches got online and said, she said something like, and Samuel didn't have a real relationship with the Lord, because if he did, the prayer would have worked. That's what gets on my nerves about Christian people. It's almost like we would have all been dead when you were sitting around waiting on Jesus.
It's just
okay.
Jesus,
God requires some action. Okay, on your part. It's supposed to be a co-ed
right.
predicament. Okay, you can't just sit there waiting on the Lord. Okay, you all would have been dead and vampires before the sun came up. It's like, it made me sick. I didn't like that. Lord, forgive me if I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
I don't believe myself to be, but just in case.
Faith without works is dead.
And it's tattooed on my chest.
So which
with a
means
cross.
I do something, you do something. You do something, I do something.
Exactly.
And as a team, we're going to make it work.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Made me sick. One thing that confused me about this whole interaction is we saw Remick get fucked up inside of the juke joint by several different people and several different things and objects, and nothing affected him the way it did when Samuel hit him with the guitar. That confused me. I didn't understand it. Excuse me. Was the director trying to suggest that Samuel had dominion over Remick in some way, shape, or form, or some form of power over him that he wasn't aware of? He knows that Remick was after the power of his voice, but did he have some form? Is there just something about his being that can go up against Remick's? I didn't know it was.
I didn't think about that.
It was so weird because none of the other attacks affected him and the others like this one did. And I would think, getting shot and, stabbed and knocked around, I would think, that would have an effect on you as much as this guitar. And I'm not sure where that metal plate came from really either. Maybe it was on the front of the guitar.
It was on the front of the guitar where the strings are.
Yeah, see, I didn't even I missed that little detail. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. You guys tell me what you think the meaning behind that was. Go ahead.
Maybe it was being that music is so powerful. Especially in the hands of someone that is anointed, if you will,
or a fire keeper, as they say,
or something to that degree.
Interesting.
So that could be it. But yeah, you guys let us know what you think that meant. And why when he got hit in the head with it, it kind of, pierced his head, and all of the other vampires felt it.
Yes.
So I'm not quite sure either what the meaning was behind that, but you guys let us know what you think that meaning was.
And of course, we get towards the end of the movie, and the rising of the sun, Remick burns to ash. I felt like this scene was a little corny, if you ask me. And they're not standing any more than 5 feet away from this dude, right? And the sun's coming up. There's all this flame and fire. You could see the waters boiling around Remick. And, I know how heat spreads through water and in different mediums. So I'm thinking to myself, I know that shit is hot. And you're just standing there like it, there's this whole tornado of fire in this air. It's kind of like
a little unrealistic.
It was super corny, super unrealistic to me. I didn't like that part. And this is the crazy thing. And he wasn't lying, because sure enough, the next day at the mill, the seller comes up, and as Remick said, and he pulls up with about 20 people, ready to go in and slaughter and loot, shit that they do, and this is the part that gagged me. You bring about 15, 20 people with you. You're all strapped. Why are you trying to get in through the back door? They go to the little door, shake it, it's locked. He says, try the front. What? Like, what? Why didn't you go through the front the first time? If you're bad, I don't know. Like, and I think that's very indicative of reality as well, and how a lot of people, oftentimes white, try to backdoor you, regardless of the numbers that they may have, and it's just kind of like, in the way I view power, in certain senses, it's kind of like, if you're really bad, you don't have to backdoor someone. You don't have to play them either. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just so interesting. If you were really confident in the fact that they're not shit and they can't accomplish anything, the business was going to fail anyway. So why go kill them, rob them, wash the floors again, and resell? It's crazy. It's crazy to me. What do you think about that?
Well, at the end of the day, a coward will always backdoor you. And there, like as you stated, there were 15 KKK members or so coming to get these two guys now.
Exactly, because it's daytime.
Yes. So 15 people to get two people, because certain types work in a mob mentality. So they have to do that because they're not what they think they are. They have to feed on each other's energy in order to do what they need to do. And that's what you saw.
You guys know what feeds on other people's energy? Vampires. Yes. Do you have something else to say about that particular scene? One of my last 2 points is, keep the same energy. He asks you for a cigarette, you call him a nigger, he gets the gun ready, and all of a sudden it's different. It's just kind of like, die with some dignity, stand on it, make him take your cigarettes from you. It's like, so many parts of this ending were just so not respectable. And then talking about, I got money, if you let me go, Negro, after I just bought this establishment from you, you came in trying to kill me
and take it back
and
my money
and what I made. Like,
and what's interesting,
he didn't get what he deserved, but I guess it'll suffice.
And what's interesting, you guys, is that scenario at the end was the very same story that they told while they were in the car. Delta Slim told the story of what happened to his friend. So that's exactly what they were trying to do to these guys. It's like some people just can't see certain people successful. They just can't see it.
And it's crazy. Now, I will say, spiritual law, you live by that sword, you die by that sword. Now, they did rob folks to get the little establishment in the first place. So there is that to be said. But like I said, I don't respect all the backdoor stuff. That's crazy. Nor do I respect the whole, begging for your life thing. When you're dead wrong. If you're dead wrong, and it didn't work out, hey, you got me. You got me. Yeah, you got me. And get ready to meet your maker. And, that's just how I feel. But if you're innocent and you want to beg, you can. I understand, I guess. And my last point for this whole movie is I think that so many of us are like Samuel when it comes to the desires of your soul or your vices or whatever it is. In his case, it's the desire of the soul. And even after we experience such unpleasant things in our life due to something, we can't let it go. We can't let it go. You know, he took his ass down to Chicago instead of giving up that guitar. Now Smoke and his dad said, give up the guitar, go throw that guitar out. You know, you could have a different life, and he didn't want it. But as we see in the movie, you know, he's what, like good 70, 80 years old now, same scars, you know, he's in there having a ball playing his guitar. So I thought, like, how often is that us in our own lives, in our own situations? And that's my closing point. And this movie's just so captivating, and it's just so insightful. It covers so many things, and there's so many different perspectives in which you can look at a lot of different scenes from, and pull and gain whatever it is that you see as meat. And I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The last thing I will say is the hype that it's getting, and the reason why people are saying they like this movie is like, maybe they don't realize how impactful the movie really is, because everything that people typically I've heard had to say about it, it doesn't even scratch the surface of everything that the movie encompasses, and that's disappointing. And I would be really disappointed as an actor or as the director and producers who put this movie together. What do you think?
I completely agree. It seems that all of the commentary that I have seen thus far has been very surface level, and it's really disappointing, actually.
Very.
But you know, we are going to show you guys some of that commentary here at the end of the video. And again, I loved the movie. It was outstanding. It has been a very, very long time since I've seen a story that has been depicted at this magnitude. And the last thing I want to say is that the lesson for us all is that your enemy comes through the front door and you welcome him in to destroy you.
A lot of the time.
So thank you guys so much for watching, and check out these videos here at the end.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Before we let you guys check out some of these videos, for those of you who enjoy our commentary, we have another channel that we're putting up. This review will also be on that channel. And if you like reviews on movies, reality TV, and TV series, you can find all of that there, and it will be linked in the description box below. And that's all I have for you guys. Bye.
I just got home from seeing Sinners, and I've been dodging all these videos, making sure I didn't get any spoiler alerts. This is my fresh take, straight from the movies. My husband and I literally just walked in, and I have a lot of takeaways, but here's one of the main ones we were discussing on the way home. For context, I was already told by some friends that Christians were walking out of the movie and people were outraged. Per usual, when it comes to horror movies, everybody's upset. Like, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into when you went and got the ticket in the first place. But anyway, so I figured that as soon as I saw the scene of him reciting the Lord's Prayer, wow, what to me felt like a baptism, getting dunked in that water 3 times, okay? I figured, okay, this is the part people were outraged about, because the devil is now, the devil is now reciting the prayer with him. But that did not bother me. We all know, or we should know, that the devil knows the Bible back to front, front to back. He knows scripture. He used to be an angel. He was the fallen angel, and he was the angel of music. which is why when we first are introduced to Remick and it literally looks like he falls out the sky. Some people were saying he was just flying, but to me, it was symbolic of an angel falling from heaven. The way his body was all marked up and burnt up, it was given he was casted out. Now let's go back to Sammy and Remnick in the water. So as a believer, I wasn't offended at all at that scene. If anything, it just confirmed what I already knew. Yes, the devil knows scripture. Yes, the devil knows prayer. Yes, the devil knows way more about you than you think. For me, that scene was just a reminder that spiritual warfare is very real. I believe the prayer didn't work for him because Sammy didn't truly believe. He was on the fence the whole movie. Like, he was trying to figure out whether he wanted to chase his music career, become famous, go off to Chicago, or whether he was going to stay and play for his daddy's church. So he was very lukewarm. He was on the fence. His heart was really not in the church at all. And number two, call me old school, but baby, I didn't hear him not once call on the name of Jesus. I didn't hear it. I don't know. That was the first thing that I would have did, honey. The first thing. Number three, this is something that really resonated with my husband and I because we're both PKs. You have to know God for yourself. Because remember, throughout the movie, there's a theme of him, Sammy, being on the fence and him having to make a choice, him having to come to a crossroads eventually, him having to make a decision. And I think in that scene where he's struggling in the water, saying the Lord's Prayer, I think that he does not know God for himself. This is the Lord's Prayer that he probably learned from his father. He grew up in the church. His relationship with God is through the lens of his father's relationship with God. He doesn't have a true relationship with God because if he did, I don't think a lot of this stuff wouldn't happen in the first place. And it just reminds me of my childhood because I had to grow up and learn that the God that we serve in this household, I need to know him for myself. It's not good enough that my father's a pastor. My daddy being a pastor can't get me to heaven. And it's not good enough that I was raised in the church. I can go to church every Sunday and still go to hell. So once again, that scene did not offend me. If anything, it motivated and inspired me to make sure, because, I'm a mother, so I want to make sure that my child knows the importance of having their own personal relationship with God and not through the lens of my relationship or their grandparents' relationship. So, yeah, now let's talk about another scene. When they were at the door, the vampires, and, they kept having to ask for permission. They couldn't just enter the door. It reminds me of how we know that the devil cannot touch you without God's permission. And we also know that God gives us free will. He's not a controlling God. He is a gentleman. He's not going to force you to do anything. So the different vampires come into the door presenting as familiar faces, presenting as things that we really want. Like, think about Bo coming to tell Grace, hey, we got to go get Lisa. I'm just your husband. You're my wife. Let's go. Presenting as everything she wants. She wants nothing but her husband to come back so they can go and pick up Lisa and go. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was so symbolic because it just represents how, to me at least, it represents how the devil will come as a familiar face. The devil will come and manipulate, try to kill, steal, destroy. But again, he cannot touch you unless you invite him in or unless God gives permission. Ooh, something else that stuck out to me was when Sammy mentioned how he just wanted a break from it all. Like, he's talking about the church. He wants a break. I think he said he just wants one day. And in the beginning, I remember when he came into the church looking crazy, and then right after that, it says one day earlier, I kept thinking to myself, this movie is 2.5 or almost 2.5 hours long. Is everything that's about to happen going to happen in one night? Yes, it is. That is because this is symbolic of what can happen when we want that break, when we step outside of the will of God, when we drop our responsibilities, the things that we know we're supposed to be doing, the things that he called us to do, when we misuse our gifts. Like, y'all, think about it. All those things happen in just one night. So although he thought he wanted a break, he thought he wanted to get away from the church, get away from what he knew to be right, or what he should have known to be right. Look at all the chaos that erupted in such a short period of time. Like, my God, it was so symbolic, y'all. Like, it, and the way his gifts were then being misused, the way Remnick, the vampires were like summoned like by his music. And again, the devil was the angel of music. The way the devil can just misuse our gifts if we let him. Child. There's just so much symbolism and just hidden Easter eggs and gems in this movie. I need time to sit with it and process it. I need to finish this conversation. Jeremiah and I are just like about to be in a deep dive all night. But 12 out of 10 recommend. Ryan Coogler, you did that. I mean, I'm not even going to try right now to get into the other side of the symbolism. Like, that, this is the religious side, but there's a whole other side for the African diaspora. I mean, it runs deep. Like, just go watch it. Go see it.
I watched the movie Sinners in theaters last weekend, and it was a cinematic masterpiece. So freaking good, and there are so many layers. Beyond just the beautiful film, the beautiful storyline, there are so many layers that go into it. I'm not going to be the person that goes into all of it, but one thing that I did want to talk about and I can't stop thinking about is the East Asian family. Because what that family did in that movie and what it represents feels so relevant in today's climate and honestly relevant in a lot of key moments in our country's history. So in the beginning of the film, you see that the Asian family has a very good, positive relationship with the Black community. They know each other's families, they're doing business together, they're partying together. A lot of it clearly hinges on the Asian family profiting off the Black community. They are able to sell products, goods, and services. But then when you get to the end of the film, and when the vampires come, and it's not so good anymore, you see that the Asian family is so quick to throw everyone under the bus. Another Asian creator who did a whole deep dive on this, I'll try to tag them, but he essentially talks about how the Asian family was willing to sacrifice the Black community, aka the exact community who was doing business with them, who was propping them up when things were good. And instead of standing in solidarity with them through good and bad, they are willing to sacrifice the exact people who help them the moment they are disadvantaged. That one thing really made me think of the role that Asians have played in the history of our country and the way that we have been complicit in a lot of social issues. Of course, there's a lot of nuance and history and compassion I have for Asian immigrants and the reason why they did the things they did in this country to survive. That said, I feel like I can still be critical and see that the way that Asian Americans have really benefited from other Black and people of color advocating for rights in this country, and Asian Americans really leaning into their proximity to whiteness feels so relevant today with everything going on in our country and the way that I see Asian Americans, and I say this as a very privileged Asian American, the way that we are so complicit and worse, ambivalent to what's happening. There are other groups of people in the Asian community who aren't doing it, who aren't being complicit and ambivalent because of fear. They're doing it because they think that they're so close to white people. They do it because they think this will never happen to them. Especially right now when K-pop and K-content is so profitable in America right now. Do you not remember 20 years ago, Asian culture was not considered cool. It was not considered profitable. But because it is considered cool and profitable, we are all benefiting from it. But don't let that fool you or give you a false sense of security, and know that it is important that we should stand in allyship and in solidarity with all groups of people who are marginalized in this country, because we also are one of those people.
Okay, just got back from seeing Sinners in IMAX and mind blown. I'm not really sure how to describe what that was, except to say that Ryan Coogler is a fucking beast. To have conceived of this story and brought it to life in such a brilliant execution. The cast is incredible. The cinematography was stunning. The music, Ludwig Göransson is like a legend in his own time. And what an absolutely brilliant and layered masterclass takedown of colonialism. The subtext was subtexting. I don't know if a horror film has ever made me feel so many things. Just brilliant. Just go see it. Go see it.
I just saw Sinners in IMAX, and not to be dramatic, but it might have changed my life. I get nervous going into movies when there's just so much hype around it, and I genuinely have not seen one bad review of this movie, so I was scared of, like, what if I'm that one person? Believe the hype. Believe it. It fucking deserves it. I have not had a movie strike awe into me in a very long time. The last time was probably last time I saw an IMAX movie, which was when they re-released Titanic in 2012. Sinners combines everything I love. Vampires, musicals, Michael B. Jordan. The only thing better than one Michael B. Jordan is two Michael B. Jordans, and honestly, they could have cast actual twins in this movie. I don't think it would have been the same. I think the casting in this movie, his character specifically, is spot on. And this is the first movie I've seen in a long time where I was truly invested in every single character. Even the ones that I didn't like, I was still invested and really wanted to see where their story went and what happened to them. I also love movies that take place around this time. This took place in 1932, and like the costume design was phenomenal. The music, the dancing, everything about it really felt like it just transported you back to that time. Like you genuinely felt like you were there. The cinematography in this movie is some of the most beautiful that I have seen in a very long time. I think that's where the awe came from. Like, there were literally some shots where I was just staring wide-eyed at the screen. One of the vampire deaths is probably the most beautiful and intense vampire deaths I've ever seen on screen in anything. There is genuinely not one bad thing I can find about this movie. I think every element of it was perfect, and it's a fucking masterpiece. It's just such an inventive, unique, and really important take on a vampire story, and I would go as far as to say that this is the most culturally important movie since Get Out. And what I loved about the vampire element is it doesn't even come in until like almost halfway through the movie, at least an hour in. Because it's just so much more than a vampire movie, and I think the pacing and just the storyline itself was so perfect. It was just such a perfect setup for when they actually did come in and come in full force. And I just had so many emotions watching this. I was horrified, I laughed, I cried, specifically at that mid-credit scene. It got me. Honestly, I think this movie is going to be my new personality for the foreseeable future, and I'm going to listen to the soundtrack on repeat. It's beautiful, it's bold, the characters are great, the storyline is great, everybody held their own, the performances are great, the music is great. I genuinely, again, cannot find one bad thing to say about this movie. It's a 10 out of 10 for me, no question, and it's probably going to end up being one of my favorites of the year.
So I went to go see that movie, Sinners, and I just don't understand what the fuck going on in the whole movie. Like, everybody keeps saying 10 out of 10, and it just wasn't giving 10 out of 10 to me because I didn't understand what the fuck was going on. So I understand that the twin brothers, they was bad guys, okay? They supposedly robbed somebody in Chicago or something like that in another fucking state, and then they brought all the money back to buy this little juke joint, okay? But they end up giving a cousin this fucking guitar or fucking whatever it was, and the cousin used that guitar to kill all the fucking vampires that night when the sun was coming up. But they was like, the fucking guitar came from their daddy, but they killed their daddy. So was they fucking daddy a vampire as well? Like, I don't understand. Was they daddy a fucking vampire? Was they evil? Because they was saying something about it's in the blood. So the twins was already vampires? And that's why they didn't die? Or what? Let me the fuck know. When the vampires wanted to come in, they was telling the Chinese woman, like, oh, you better let us in or we're going to go get little Annabelle, whatever her daughter's name was. Why didn't they just go get her? Or do that represent that they can't fuck with the kids? Like, kids are so protected that no, and innocent that no wickedness can fuck with the kids. You know what I mean? Like, because if the vampires wanted to live longer, why didn't they just turn the kids into vampires? You know what I'm saying? But whatever. Another thing I didn't understand was at kind of the beginning of the movie or whatever, when he opened that little thing or when the snake jumped out and they killed that snake, did that snake represent that one of the brothers wanted to kill? I call one was a good brother and one was a bad brother, but both of them was bad. But did the brother that turned into the vampire, I don't know which one was Stack and which one was Smoke, I don't know, but the one that turned into the vampire, before he was a vampire, him, when the snake jumped out, did he plant that so it could kill his brother? But it couldn't kill his brother because his brother was protected by the thing that, his baby mama had done gave him to put on his neck. Like, was that part of something y'all missed or something? Like, or was I overthinking it? Like, was the brother trying to snake the other brother, but he was already protected by that charm? And that's why the lady was like, oh, I've been praying for you. So, I don't know. Like, I just don't understand what the fuck was going on. And then when he returned back to the fucking church at the end of the movie and was holding the fucking guitar, was the dude, preacher boy, was his fucking preacher daddy a vampire too? Like, was he like leading the people to be vampires? Because y'all know when they was in the water and he was trying to baptize, the vampire was trying to baptize preacher boy or whatever, they was all saying like a Bible thing or whatever, scripture. And so when they got back to the church, all the church people were saying the same shit. So was they vampires? I don't understand. I hope I don't sound crazy, but in the movie, they show everybody bite mark. Like, once the vampire bit somebody, they showed their bite mark. Like, one was on the back, one was on the neck, one was on the neck, one was on the chest. But with Pork Chop, they didn't show where Pork Chop got bit at. I mean, they did show the bruise on the face, but that's when he got, in the face. But did they bark his wee wee?
I'm telling y'all right now, do not go see the Sinners movie unless you want to be spiritually contaminated. The truth of the matter is the African spiritism and the ancestral worship as a core theme of the film. Of course, there's some underscores of cultural appropriation, commentary, and things like that. But essentially, it's about the rejection of Christianity and the acceptance of traditional ancestral worship. It's a very diabolical film. Yes, it may be visually and aesthetically pleasing, but if you look at the spiritual undertones, there's some very demonic things. And I'm concerned because it is the introduction of a form of idolatry that is actually very dangerous. And so even though everybody's praising Ryan Coogler, I think that there should be a critique of the demonic aspect of the film.